Accountant explains the 6 levels of wealth in America. Most people have no idea where they actually stand financially, not even a rough idea. They assume they know. They look at their paycheck, maybe glance at their savings account, and they think, okay, I'm doing fine, or I'm doing okay, or I'm a little behind. But fine, okay, and a little behind are not financial positions. They are feelings. And the difference between a feeling and an actual financial position can be the difference between retiring at 62 and working until 78. Here is what I want you to understand in the next 15 minutes. There are 6 distinct, measurable levels of wealth in America. Not 2, not 3, 6. And most Americans are misclassified, in their own minds, by at least one full level, sometimes 2. The misclassification goes both ways. Some people think they are wealthier than they are. Some people are quietly, significantly wealthier than they believe. And both mistakes are expensive. I work as a federal tax accountant. My office focuses on high-income filings, retirement income structuring, and estate planning for families at multiple wealth levels. I see the numbers, not the lifestyle, not the Instagram, the actual numbers. And what the numbers show me, year after year, is that the level someone believes they are at and the level they are actually at are almost never the same. Here is what we are going to cover. First, I'm going to give you the 6 levels, specific, defined, with real dollar thresholds. Not vague categories, not feel-good buckets, actual Federal Reserve and census data, translated into plain language. Second, I'm going to show you the single financial metric that tells you which level you are actually at, and it is not your income. Third, I'm going to walk you through what separates level 3 from level 4, because that is the single most important transition in American financial life, and almost nobody talks about it correctly. Fourth, I'm going to explain why so many upper-middle-class earners are secretly living at level 2. And fifth, this is the one that surprises people most, I'm going to show you the move that people at level 4 make to reach level 5, which has nothing to do with earning more money. Stay with me on this last point because I will come back to it, and it is the part that changes how people think about wealth entirely. Level 1. Financial Fragility. Level 1 is the bottom of the American wealth framework. It is defined not by income, but by what the Federal Reserve calls financial fragility, which is the inability to absorb a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. That number is not random. The Federal Reserve has been tracking it since 2013 in its annual Survey of Household Economics and Decision-Making, known as the SHED report. In the most recent data, approximately 37% of American adults, that is roughly 95 million people, cannot cover a $400 emergency from their existing checking or savings account. They would need to use a credit card they cannot immediately pay off, borrow from a family member, sell a possession, or simply go without handling the emergency. This is level 1, and here is the part that makes people uncomfortable. Level 1 is not defined by poverty. You can be earning $60,000 a year and be at level 1. You can be earning $80,000 a year and be at level 1. I have seen it. Income and wealth are not the same thing. Level 1 is defined entirely by the absence of a liquid buffer between you and a financial emergency. The household profile at level 1 typically looks like this. Total liquid savings, meaning money in checking, savings, and money market accounts that can be accessed without penalty, is under $1,000. Monthly expenses consume 95% or more of monthly take-home pay. Any unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical copay, a broken appliance, goes onto a credit card, which is then carried month to month. The balance grows. The interest compounds, and the buffer never forms because the surplus that would create it is already spoken for. 40% of American adults are at level 1 or one small emergency away from sliding into it. That is the foundation of the 6-level framework. Everything above level 1 is defined by how far removed you are from that fragility. Level 2. Financial Stability. Level 2 is where fragility ends and stability begins. The boundary between level 1 and level 2 is a 3-month emergency fund, liquid, accessible, untouched. A 3-month emergency fund means that if you lost your job today, you could pay your mortgage or rent, your utilities, your insurance, your groceries, and your minimum debt payments for 90 days without touching a retirement account, without going into credit card debt, and without calling a family member. For the median American household, with median expenses of approximately $4,200 per month, a 3-month emergency fund is $12,600. That is the level 2 threshold. $12,000 to $15,000 in liquid savings, an income that covers your expenses without relying on credit, and a basic retirement account that you are contributing to, even if only at a small percentage. Level 2 sounds modest, and it is. But here is what Level 2 actually means in the context of American financial data. According to the most recent Federal Reserve data, approximately 43% of American adults do not have enough savings to cover 3 months of expenses, which means nearly half of the country is either at Level 1 or approaching the lower boundary of Level 2. If you have a 3-month emergency fund and you are not carrying revolving credit card debt, you are ahead of roughly 45% of American adults. That is not a compliment. That is a measurement. The bar is low. And the distance between where most Americans are and where they need to be is significant. The characteristic behaviors of Level 2 are these. Emergency fund exists and is separate from the operating checking account. No revolving credit card debt, meaning the balance is paid in full every month. A retirement contribution of at least enough to capture any employer match. And monthly expenses that consume no more than 85% of take-home pay, leaving a small surplus for savings. Level 2 is stable. Level 2 is not secure. Stability means you can absorb small shocks. Security means something different, and it does not arrive until Level 3. Level 3, financial security. The line between Level 2 and Level 3 is the line most financial content ignores, because it is not as exciting as talking about millionaires, and it is not as dramatic as talking about poverty. But it is the most important line in the entire framework. Level 3 is defined by this. Your basic expenses are covered by assets you already own, not by labor you are currently performing. Let me say that again. At Level 3, your basic needs, housing, food, utilities, transportation, basic healthcare, are covered in principle by the passive income or accumulated assets you have already built. You are not dependent on your current paycheck for your basic survival. This does not mean you are retired. It means you have crossed a threshold where, if the worst happened, if you lost your job, if your industry collapsed, if you became unable to work for a period, your basic standard of living would be maintained by what you have already built. For most Americans, this threshold arrives when they have a combination of 3 things. First, a fully funded 6-month emergency fund, not 3 months, but 6. Second, a retirement account balance that, projected to retirement age, would cover basic living expenses without any additional contributions. And third, all high-interest consumer debt, credit cards, personal loans, high-rate auto loans, fully eliminated. The asset threshold for Level 3 varies by age and by lifestyle, but as a rough figure, a 40-year-old American household needs approximately $250,000 in net investable assets. Retirement accounts, taxable investment accounts, real assets excluding primary residence, to be genuinely at Level 3. Here is why that number matters. $250,000 in a diversified portfolio, using the 4% withdrawal rule, generates approximately $10,000 per year. That is not enough to live on. But combined with earned income, it is enough to mean that your earned income is no longer your only line of defense. It is the difference between working because you need to and working because you choose to. Approximately 30% of American households are at Level 3. But here is the misclassification I see constantly. Many high-income earners, households earning $150,000, $200,000, even $250,000 per year, believe they are at Level 3. They are not. They are at Level 2 with a nicer lifestyle. Because they have not built the asset base, they have built the income. And income without assets is not security. It is a salary that stops the moment you stop working. Level 4, financial independence. Level 4 is where the conversation changes completely, and this is the transition I mentioned at the beginning, the single most important financial transition in American life. Level 4 is financial independence. The formal definition, as articulated by the financial independence community and now adopted by most financial planners, is this. Your investment portfolio generates enough passive income to cover your total living expenses indefinitely. Not your basic expenses, your total expenses, the life you actually live. The calculation is straightforward. Take your annual living expenses, multiply by 25. That is the portfolio size required for financial independence, using the 4% rule as validated by the Trinity study and its subsequent updates. For a household with $50,000 in annual expenses, financial independence requires $1.25 million in investable assets. For a household with $80,000 in annual expenses, it requires $2 million. For a household with $120,000 in annual expenses, it requires $3 million. These numbers sound large. They are large. Level 4 is not common. According to Federal Reserve data, approximately 7 to 8% of American households meet this threshold, meaning roughly 1 in 12 American families has reached genuine financial independence. But here is the nuance that most financial content misses. Financial independence does not require a specific income. I have worked with households earning $45,000 a year who reached financial independence at 51 because they built the habit of investing aggressively over 3 decades. I have worked with households earning $300,000 a year who are nowhere close to level 4 at 63 because the lifestyle expanded with the income and the asset base never grew proportionally. The variable that determines whether a household reaches level 4 is not income. It is the gap between income and expenses. Specifically, what percentage of take-home pay is consistently invested over time. A household that invests 30% of take-home pay consistently will reach level 4. A household that invests 5% will not reach level 4 before retirement, in most scenarios regardless of income level. That is the mechanism. And it is why I said at the beginning that the move from level 4 to level 5 has nothing to do with earning more money. I will get to level 5 in a moment, but the principle is the same. Levels 4, 5, and 6 are not income levels. They are asset levels. And the asset base is built by the gap between what you earn and what you spend, compounded over time. Level 5, financial abundance. Level 5 is the level that most financial media conflates with level 4, and the conflation is a mistake that costs people real money. Level 4 is financial independence. Your portfolio covers your expenses. You are free. You can stop working if you choose. Level 5 is financial abundance. Your portfolio significantly exceeds what you need to cover your expenses. You have what planners call a substantial margin of safety, meaning market downturns, healthcare shocks, extended longevity, or major lifestyle expenses can be absorbed without any meaningful change to your financial position. The rough threshold for level 5, using current Federal Reserve wealth distribution data, is a net worth of approximately $2.5 to $3 million for a median lifestyle American household, or a portfolio that generates passive income at least 1.5 to 2 times annual expenses. At level 5, money stops being a constraint on decisions. It becomes a background variable. You do not choose where to live based on cost of living. You do not choose medical treatments based on what insurance covers. You do not calculate whether you can afford to help a family member in a crisis. You simply handle it. Approximately 3 to 4% of American households are at level 5. Here is the move from level 4 to level 5 that I referenced at the beginning. It is not income. It is tax architecture. The households I work with who successfully move from level 4 to level 5 almost always do so not by earning dramatically more, but by restructuring how their income and assets are taxed. The combination of maxing all available tax-advantaged accounts, 401k, Roth IRA, health savings account, and for the self-employed, SEP IRA or solo 401k, and implementing a tax loss harvesting strategy in taxable accounts, and structuring income to stay within specific marginal tax brackets, can produce an effective reduction in lifetime tax liability of $200,000 to $400,000 for a household at the level 4 to level 5 boundary. That $200,000 to $400,000 does not disappear. It compounds in the portfolio, and in 15 to 20 years, it is often the difference between level 4 and level 5. I will come back to the specific mechanics in a moment in the advanced section. But the principle is this. Moving from level 4 to level 5 is a tax optimization problem, not an income problem. Level 6, generational wealth. Level 6 is generational wealth, And I want to be careful about how I define this, because the term gets used loosely in ways that obscure what it actually means. Generational wealth is not simply having a large estate. Generational wealth is an asset base large enough to provide financial security, specifically level 3 security or higher, to the next generation without materially diminishing the portfolio. By that definition, the threshold for level 6 in the United States is approximately $10 million or more in net assets. This is consistent with the Federal Reserve's definition of the top 1% of American wealth holders, and with the federal estate tax exemption, which currently sits at $13.61 million per individual, and is a proxy for the threshold at which the federal government considers an estate large enough to tax. Approximately 1% of American households are at level 6. That represents roughly 1.3 million households. But here is the data point that almost no one discusses. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances shows that the median inheritance received by American households that receive any inheritance at all is approximately $69,000. Not $1 million, not $500,000, $69,000. The gap between level 6 wealth and the actual inheritance experience of most American families is vast. Most families that believe they will receive or transmit generational wealth are actually moving level 2 money between generations. Meaningful, certainly, but not transformative in the way the term implies. True level 6, an asset base that compounds across multiple generations without depletion, requires not just the asset accumulation, but the estate planning infrastructure to transmit those assets efficiently. Irrevocable trusts, annual gift exclusions, qualified opportunity zone investments, family-limited partnerships. The tax infrastructure of level 6 is its own discipline, and without it, the assets diminish at each generational transfer through estate taxes, capital gains events, and simple division among heirs. Level 6 is not just a number, it is a structure, and building that structure is where the transition from level 5 to level 6 happens. Where are you, actually? Now that we have defined all 6 levels, here is the diagnostic. The single metric that tells you which level you are at is your net worth relative to your annual expenses. Not your income, your net worth. And not your gross net worth, your investable net worth, meaning the value of your liquid and semi-liquid assets, retirement accounts, taxable investment accounts, savings accounts, real estate equity excluding primary residence, minus all liabilities. Here is the shorthand framework. If your investable net worth is less than 12 months of annual expenses, you are at level 1 or level 2. If your investable net worth is between 12 months and 60 months of annual expenses, 1 to 5 years, you are at the lower boundary of level 3. If your investable net worth is between 5 years and 25 times your annual expenses, you are at the upper boundary of level 3 or lower boundary of level 4. If your investable net worth is 25 times your annual expenses or greater, you are at level 4 or above. Most people who do this calculation discover they are 1 full level lower than they believed. That is not a criticism, it is a recalibration. And recalibration is useful because you cannot make accurate decisions about where you are going without an accurate read on where you are. The 4 moves that matter most. Here is the actionable part. The 4 moves that account for the vast majority of upward movement across the 6 levels. Move number 1. Close the emergency fund gap first. Before any investment, before any retirement contribution beyond the employer match, a 3 to 6 month emergency fund is the prerequisite for all upward movement. A portfolio that gets liquidated every time a car breaks down does not compound. The emergency fund is the foundation that allows everything else to work. Move number 2. Eliminate all high-interest consumer debt before investing beyond the employer match. A credit card charging 22% interest is a guaranteed 22% loss on every dollar that sits in a savings account instead of paying it off. The highest guaranteed return available to any American household is the elimination of high-interest consumer debt. The math is simple, the discipline is hard. But the math does not change. Move number 3. Increase the investment rate by 1% per year, automatically. Most households cannot go from saving 5% to saving 20% overnight. But going from 5% to 6% is imperceptible. Going from 6 to 7 1 year later is imperceptible again. Over 7 years, a household that runs this protocol moves from saving 5% of income to saving 12%. Over 12 years, they reach 17%. At 17%, over a 30-year working career, financial independence is the expected outcome, not the exception. Move number 4. Restructure taxes before income. Every dollar not paid in taxes is a dollar that compounds. The sequence of tax-advantaged accounts available to American workers, employer 401k to the match first, then HSA if available, then Roth IRA, then max the 401k, then taxable, can reduce a median household's lifetime tax liability by $150,000 to $200,000. That is not an optimization. That is a level. The advanced move, the one most people miss. Here is the thing that almost no financial content explains clearly. There is a specific strategy available to households at the level 3 to level 4 boundary. Households with investable assets between $250,000 and $750,000 that can meaningfully accelerate the transition to level 4. It is called asset location, and it is distinct from asset allocation. Asset allocation is the mix of stocks and bonds in your portfolio. You have almost certainly heard about asset allocation. It is covered everywhere. Asset location is which assets sit in which type of account, taxable versus tax-deferred versus tax-free, and the difference in lifetime returns between a correctly located portfolio and a randomly located portfolio for a household at this asset level is typically between $80,000 and $150,000 over a 20-year period. The principle is this: high-growth, tax-inefficient assets, stock index funds with regular dividend distributions, actively managed funds with high turnover, belong in tax-advantaged accounts, where the gains and distributions are sheltered. Low-turnover, tax-efficient assets, broad market ETFs, municipal bonds, belong in taxable accounts, where they generate minimal taxable events. Most households do the opposite. They put their bond funds in the taxable account, where interest is taxed as ordinary income, and they put their growth funds in the taxable account as well, where dividends and realized gains are taxed annually. The tax drag on this arrangement, over 20 years, is the difference between level 3 and level 4 for many households. The fix takes one afternoon. Move the high-yield, high-turnover holdings into your 401k or IRA. Move the broad market index funds and municipal bonds into the taxable account. Do not trigger unnecessary capital gains events in the process. This is a gradual rebalancing, not a same-day liquidation and repurchase. If you are not sure whether your current asset location is optimal, the easiest starting diagnostic is this. Look at what is sitting in your taxable brokerage account. If you see high dividend stock funds, high yield bond funds, or any actively managed funds generating distributions, those are candidates for relocation into your tax-deferred accounts on your next rebalancing cycle. Closing. Here is where I want to leave you. The 6 levels of wealth in America are not a judgment. They are a map. And the purpose of a map is to tell you where you are, not where you wish you were, and not where you feel you are. Most Americans are at level 1 or level 2. That is not a moral failure. It is the product of an economic environment that is genuinely difficult, combined with a financial education system that teaches almost nothing about how wealth actually builds. The levels do not move based on income alone. They move based on the gap between income and expenses, maintained consistently over time, and structured efficiently from a tax standpoint. If you take one thing from this video, let it be the diagnostic. Calculate your investable net worth. Divide it by your annual expenses. The number you get tells you, more accurately than any other single measurement, which level you are at and how far you are from the next one. If you want to go deeper on any of the mechanics I covered today, the asset location strategy, the tax sequencing framework, the emergency fund structure for each level, hit the subscribe button, because those are the next videos coming to this channel. Each one goes into the numbers the way we went into them today. And if you know someone who is making decisions about money without a clear picture of where they stand, a sibling, a parent, a friend who keeps saying they are doing fine without actually knowing, send them this video. The 6 levels take 15 minutes to understand. The decisions they inform can last a lifetime. I will see you in the next video.